Thank you for coming together with us this morning. I'm so excited to be on the stage with these incredible worldwide leaders. We're going to talk about music licensing in sports. And I'm Selena Meir, the COO of Trivana Tracks, and it's a SaaS platform where broadcasters and production companies manage their music clearance and licensing. But our focus today is really to kind of dig into that world where these global brands are connecting fans through music, which is so important. So we're going to dig into that. We're going to look at why music is critical to sports programming, and then kind of talk about some of the steps to put that music into content of all shapes and all sizes and all formats, because you have to do it right no matter what the format is. Okay. And then we're going to address some of the biggest knowledge gaps, and which I think starts really with like music isn't just plug and play. It's legal, creative, finance, all in one. And we're super ready to get started. Claude, I'm going to start with you. And I'm going to let you guys get to know the panelists through their answers, because I mean, we've got ESPN, Motorsport, F1, and the NBA. So you guys know all those brands, I'm sure of it, and you'll get to know their personalities through the conversation we're going to have. So let's start with there's a lot of change and growth in sports programming right now. So I'd love to know how that has helped your strategy or informed your strategy as you're connecting to fans across so many different types of content.
Well, when I first started, it was week to week, 24 hours or less, just for that broadcast for the most part, whether it was a sports center or a game. That shifted a lot over time. Now we're looking at taking 3-6 month year plus strategy out. We're working on the Super Bowl right now, and we're looking at, we're a little less than 500 days away from our Super Bowl in 2027. We've been talking about it for almost a year. So the strategy and the outlook is a lot longer. We're looking at things where we're building packages of music and planning ahead so that there's less scramble week to week. There's always going to be daily storylines, but we're going to have good complement of music and really work out the business behind that, well in advance.
Yeah. And so how do you think about all of the different types of content, the types of fans? I mean, the range is massive, right? From tennis to basketball to, like you said, football. How do you think about what works in all of these different scenarios?
Well, I think a great song starts it off, no matter what. But we also look at it from a perspective of, we don't look at it. We talk about our fans at ESPN on a regular basis, and that fan is not a monolith. It's not the guy who's, sits and watches the entire day of NFL all day, or, is a diehard fan. There's a strata all the way down to casual fans. Think about Super Bowl Sunday. People show up and they're there for a good time, not for the football game. So we have to look to appeal from, everybody from the diehard down to, someone's daughter who might hear a Taylor Swift song and turn around and look up and go, okay, and might actually sit down with their dad for a change.
Oh, yeah. Music is tying those generations together, right? I mean, Lisa, you know that. F1, hottest thing in the entire world right now. I have a 13-year-old daughter who's going to be a race car driver for Halloween. So we're finding out that your fans, like Claude said, their legacy, their women, their young kids, and also they're really into the drivers, their personalities, and the drama. So you got to have music if you're going to introduce all of those. So how are you working music into this strategy?
Yeah, it's so interesting. So Motorsport Network is a global media org that actually covers all racing series. And so we're looking at this across Formula One. We're looking at this at IndyCar, NASCAR, MotoGP was just acquired by Liberty Media, who acquired Formula One, and you can sort of see what happened there. And what's really interesting is Motorsport Network partnered with Formula One on a global 2025 F1 fan survey. And a lot of, Selena, what you were just sort of referencing is what we really found to be true, which is that we're 27% of fans surveyed, over 100,000 of them, by the way, are following Formula One for 5 years or less. And out of that percentage, a majority of them are Gen Z, and a majority of them are women. And so when you start, and those numbers go up even more when you slice that data by the US specifically. And so what's so interesting though is across legacy fans and emerging fans, what we did find was that they all unite around the thrill of the race. So the sport itself, right? The actual sport has to be good. However, their entry points made 10% were drive to survive. Friends and family were actually much higher than that. And so when you start to look at cross-generational sort of, connection points and the fact that drivers are what's driving so much of that intention, music, a lot of the track promoters, for example, have identified this as how you start to engage audiences over time, over the course of a weekend. So music has become sort of one of those unifiers across generations, but it's also become a unifier for fans on the ground. So more than ever, fans want to go to the races, but they also want to participate, as you were sort of saying, Claude, around sort of the culture of the sport. And so for racing in particular, and I would definitely put Formula One at the top of that, you sort of see that the culture of the sport is helping to create and fuel that always on fandom. And so we're seeing that a lot kind of across the board.
That always on fandom, I think, is really playing into your role, Jasmine, at the NBA, because now all of a sudden you are reaching fans well beyond the borders of the United States. So how has that evolved what you need to do at the NBA now?
At the league, we really focus on data and analytics, right? But all of that information that we gather is really based on statistics with the players and our fans. But none of it is based on music. And so my job is to figure out just how do we get temperature check on what the fans want and what the players want. Music is so ingrained in every single touch point of what we do. From the moment you walk into an arena, you're hearing music. Anytime there's a timeout, there's music. Commercial, there's music. When the players step on the court, when they're warming up, they want to listen to music that they enjoy listening to. But then when we start thinking about what does that look like across our content, we have 6 global offices and distinct global offices. And so our fans around the globe love the game of basketball, but how do you pair the music choices to go with that, right? Like if I'm in Europe, if I'm in Africa, if I'm in Asia, China, even in Canada, the way that our content teams are focusing on music and tailoring it to localize so that our fans are not only enjoying basketball, but they're also getting that experience tied to it. Because no one wants to go on social media and just see a clip of video without music. And the music really drives the entire emotion and mood that's happening within that content.
And what do you say to the people who are like, oh, it's just on social media, we don't need to clear it?
Absolutely. You need to clear it. You need to clear it. There is no, I think, in fairness to the music industry, the landscape has changed so much, and they've tried to keep up with it for very long in terms of how music is being distributed and used. And there isn't an exact science to really capture that, but there are a lot of tools now that help to kind of scrub all these platforms. And so now they're actually able to realize where their music is being played, and monetize that in a way where they're holding anyone who uses it. I'm not just speaking with regards to the league, but anyone who uses music, they're holding people accountable for paying them what their creative is worth. So, do your due diligence, pay it forward, do the right thing, and, you build great relationships with music industry executives across the board when you just create that level playing field.
If you're at a media company, there are whole businesses built around searching the net and pulling in licensing money. Don't want to be, in the crosshairs of something or have your content taken down because you use something without proper license. It happens all the time, and it's something that, can be, as long as you have good sources and know how to navigate it, it becomes very easy to just, to miss on those challenges.
Yeah. So I want to circle back to an area we were headed towards earlier, which is connecting to that fan. And I get the sense that activations are really starting to build up. So how is that playing into the work you're all doing?
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you that. So last week we held an Autosport Business Exchange conference actually right up the street at Classic Car Club Manhattan, where I had the privilege of interviewing the new president of the Miami Grand Prix, Katharina Novak, and she, as well as Keith Sheldon, president of entertainment at Hard Rock International and Seminole Gaming. And it was a really interesting conversation that we had around that, which was sort of this idea that to engage the fan over the course of the weekend is really, it takes a lot of intense planning these days. And right at the center of that in Miami, and I would say at the U.S. Grand Prix in Austin that just took place this weekend, concerts anchor that entertainment. And so, Hard Rock played a significant role with Miami in sort of inventing that idea around the races. And you can sort of see it now. They had Ed Sheeran before Ed Sheeran was on the F1 movie soundtrack. Garth Brooks was just at the U.S. Grand Prix in Austin. And you start to see it's not just one night of music, it's multiple nights. And then, of course, like in the cities proper, right, you have parties like that are not even affiliated with the actual race itself and the circuit. And a lot of that is sort of music oriented, DJs and whatnot. And so I think you're sort of seeing fans coalesce around music because it's a great unifier for and excuse essentially to sort of be at a location longer and enjoy sort of what they love in the context of the sport they love.
Yeah.
We tend to use to play off of that exact idea, but work it through all of our verticals. So whether it's marketing, production, on-site activations, those all can be tied together by a musical artist, even down to the artist may be doing a tease and they may, or a commercial, and they may be the voiceover for that. So we really try and figure out ways strategically to unify that. To the point of F1, we have had Lady Gaga, Adrenaline as our song throughout the season, and she's gone to the events, and that was kind of helped by the partnership. And we've also worked the other way where, we've gone to Austin or we've gone to Miami and there's been an artist activation and we've been able to bring that into our programming. This past weekend, Baylor Zimmerman and Luke Combs performed on College Game Day. They were also featured has been featured in our college football programming and on Game Day. So we're trying to find opportunities to engage artists and make them part of the culture because there's a correlation. Luke Combs is an insane Georgia fan, so making him part of that event made a lot of sense. The week before, it's like we've had other artists who have been tied to schools or tied to teams really work together on that. So it's important. It's important to us to make sure that representation is equally from the culture as well from the sport.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I work really closely with Claude's colleagues in the music team for ESPN, specifically on, really big days for the NBA that our games are on ESPN or ABC. And, coming into this role, I realized just the breadth and depth of how ESPN actually looks at music and really relates to artists and has them incorporated in all the things that they do. And, the league in and of itself, when we do any event in market, all-star, for example, global games in Abu Dhabi, Mexico City, Macau, China, we're trying to expose our fans and that market to global music. It's just not, hip hop or rap. Like all of our content series has a variety of genres of music. And what really, is important to me is to make sure that we're giving a unique experience. In 2023, we hosted All Star in Salt Lake City and we brought Afro beats to the main stage there. I mean, that was a really great moment for me personally as a fan of Afrobeats music, but also just knowing that the players were excited. They didn't expect it. Giannis was like amazed at the fact that we could get Burna Boy and Thames. And, it was just a really unique moment. And those are the things I think that are also important too. Like not just, having music be part of, the background noise, but really bringing it to the forefront so that people get excited about the whole entertainment package.
Yeah, absolutely. And the whole entertainment package is including documentaries now, right? And behind the scenes and all of that. And so there has to be a good soundtrack to these storytelling. So at Travana, we see a lot of music teams struggle with creative pivots, right? Because the music teams are sort of there to support the creative storytellers. Our audience today is probably full of people in production and post and editing. And so, Jasmine, what's something that you would like the audience to know about working with a music team? Or
be flexible. Be open to other ideas. Most times we want that very unique sound, that one song that this particular artist, resonates with the content that you're creating. But a lot of times from a budgetary perspective, honestly, that is not going to allow you to get that A-list artist. I think what's really, unique is that the indie, which in my mind used to be called like underground music artists, are really flourishing. They have platform now to really distribute their own music and support behind that. And so don't discount kind of that artist that may not be on everyone's radar, but is on the radar and they're out there. TikTok artists are now getting record label deals. The landscape has changed. So just be open to other avenues of getting great music that may not be, of the Beyoncés of the world. She's always a good, person to reference.
yeah, there's only like 23 rights holders on her track. So yeah, no big deal. Claude, anything how do you like to work with your production teams?
Time is the enemy. For what we do, 23, Travis Scott's song Sicko Mode has something close to 23. It has like something like 16 writers and 23 publishers. So in that case, that's all of those are dozens of people that have to give approvals on every one all the way down to we have all the master owners, 100% of the publishing. So that takes time. And God forbid right now we're in a world where, especially if you're dealing in hip hop, where you are dealing with, in that case of that song and others, where you now have songs that are sampling songs that sampled. So there's this layering of things that happen. But even more like, historically, if you want a Bruce Springsteen song, Bruce reviews syncs twice a month with his manager. So if you don't catch that day, you have to wait. If people are on tour, you're going to have to wait. Film score, it could be a problem. We had a situation where we were trying to use a score from Jerry Bruckheimer that was from a Jerry Bruckheimer film. Jerry has to approve them. Mission Impossible, Tom Cruise has to approve them. Jerry Bruckheimer was in the Philippines shooting Pearl Harbor, and the licensing people were like, well, we don't think we can get to him. So you have to be prepared that, I would say we come with two options. Try and come with two options. You're number one, but there's got to be a plan B, because if a plane could crash for any number of reasons. And if you're not prepared, then it's going to, the fans may not know, but you'll know, and it'll feel bad, and it'll feel really bad. So we're trying to, we end up not being the killer of dreams, but trying to be an enabler and trying to figure out options. So when we say, no, we don't think we can do that, we're also going to come with other opportunities, or talk to you and help you figure out something.
Yeah. I mean, we hear that from our clients all the time. They need to be very fast and very accurate, and that's why they need a good system to do that in. Desmond, how do you deal with the time and communicate that internally?
Education is paramount. I think that internally, no one understands the job that I do. I'm the only person in the organization that does this job. And so educating all of what I call my internal clients in terms of what that process looks like is important. It's taken years. And I think sometimes when we do a great job of clearing music quickly, and they expect that all the time. And the problem is that isn't always the case, obviously, with what you just talked about.
What is it? The financial thing? Previous results do not indicate future returns. It is exactly that in music licensing. I could license the same song 12 times, and the 13th time, for whatever reason, it's a no-go. And a lot of times it could be that there's a big use in a film, and it's like now exclusive for a certain window. So you have to be prepared that there are going to be curveballs, and sometimes we're able to finesse it. We've become very adept at trying to find management, or get to people, as quickly and directly to the people who are, that are the end approvers, which kind of ticks off our licensing partners at the labels and publishers. But it's something that we've learned that, sometimes to get a yes, we have to kind of get dirty.
Yeah. What you got to do. That's what you got to do. So what I'm hearing is that, you need that support system, right? Of the people who understand this market and have the relationships, and can't be taken for granted.
I always say, give me at least 2 weeks. At least 2 weeks it takes almost that long just for them to really nail their creative anyway. Like they'll just come with, we want a high energy, up tempo, exciting song. Okay. That's millions of songs. Like what does your creative brief look like? What, where is this going to live? So there's just so many different factors that go into how do we narrow down the selection of music if they don't already come with something in mind, which can be difficult.
And I'll give you another factor, actually, which is the commercial layer. So a division of Motorsport Network that we have is Motorsport Studios. And so Motorsport Studios works to connect brands with fans through their love of racing. And so all of a sudden you now have the complexity of the video content, social storytelling that you're putting out there that is in partnership with a brand. And so I'm sure from a clearance perspective, that just gets ever more complicated, right? Because we're sitting here talking a lot about sort of, broadcasting to fans and the content that sort of sits within the context of, the league or the broadcaster. when we're thinking about working with our brand partners, and music being, as we sort of said at the top, so crucial to the cultural connection of racing specifically, I would say, kind of across, across all of these different audience demographics, the music complexities on a logistical level get really challenging. But then also creatively, we're thinking too as to, what does that music sort of look, sound, feel like in a way that actually is going to resonate and accomplish the goals of the commercial client.
Right.
Yeah, that full picture. If you're in production and you're only talking about your piece of content going into one place, in the world we live in right now and most media companies, that means that that piece of content could go any number of places during a time frame. And if you work in a silo and only think about like, okay, I need to do this piece for my game that day on, that Saturday, that Sunday, then it's incumbent on my team to challenge, and I challenge my staff to, well, ask the question, go talk to the programming person, go push them to go, where else is this going to be used? Because again, back to the time thing, if I've started an approval and I've gotten an approval and then you tell me that I now need to add social to that or a marketing aspect or something else, now we're gone back to one. And it's like, so all that previous time is lost. So we have to kind of, it's like, so knowing the big picture from day one and bringing the team in, bringing your licensing people in early is really critical.
I will say there is a fun component to it all, though. You were sort of saying earlier, both of you guys were sort of talking about having options and finding music in unexpected sources. I think that, we're sort of inspired by some of sort of the reverse that's happening too in the culture when we're sort of seeing the connection to the sport. So, for example, I love this example, which is that, the data actually says that IndyCar fans have a higher propensity to actually have a passion for ballroom dancing. I'm not kidding.
I wouldn't have guessed it.
Never
gotten that wrong on Two Truths and a Lie.
100%. Now, we saw that and we were like, that's interesting. And then I realized somebody else saw that. You know who saw that? The casting director at Dancing with the Stars. And James Hinchcliffe on Dance. I mean, I assume, I don't know, but I would have to believe that somebody noticed, because having James Hinchcliffe, who at the time was an IndyCar driver, participate in Dancing with the Stars, all of a sudden brought in or engaged an audience that they may have had, but also then sort of spoke to those sort of like seemingly disparate passions. So I think when you're looking creatively to solve a lot of the problems that you all have surfaced, thinking creatively about who ultimately that music is for and where those opportunities perhaps lie is something that I would sort of encourage everyone to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really love that music is bringing the younger generation and stopping them in their tracks to see what mom or dad is watching. So you were about to say something, Jasmine.
I was just going to add, I know we're talking about licensing commercial popular music, but from a production standpoint, I would just say never shy away from music libraries. There are so many amazing music libraries out there, both large and small, very curated ones, boutique. Like, there is music out there that is really at a level that can bring whatever mood, whatever, particular piece of content that you're creating to the same level. It doesn't necessarily always have to be a commercial or popular track.
Yeah.
We talk about songs owning a program. Like, if we're working on, we use In the Air Tonight by Phil Collins in Monday Night Football. And on a certain level, we're leveraging that song into our programming. But if there are songs that are part of production libraries that have become part of the lexicon of some of our major programming. College, it's like our NFL studio shows have been using pretty much the same songs since I've been in college. And they're just part of the DNA. So there's always that thing of like, potentially your content, your program If you apply repetition, it becomes part of the identity of the show. So don't underestimate the power of what production music can do, or just like, or otherwise something that's created specifically for the show, because that thing becomes part of the brand.
Love it. Oh my God. All right. In the last 29 seconds, fire round. What are your favorite sync moments? Mine is the song Sweetness by Yes and the closing credits of Buffalo 66. You have one?
I would have to say The Bodyguard with.
Oh, okay.
Come on. So many moments in there.
I mean, all right. Well, those go in a bigger, broader way. I was going to stay on brand and say We Will Rock You from the trailer for F1, the movie, I thought was just a brilliant, decision.
Oh, I love it.
Layla in Goodfellas.
Yes. Oh my God. So good. So good. All right. Well, thank you. If you are interested in learning more about, how to manage this chaotic process, my company doesn't do it, but it provides the platform. You can reach out to me on the QR code. And please watch Inside the NBA on ESPN. Is that tomorrow or tonight? Tonight, debuting tonight. Now it's on ESPN, and stay tuned for what is happening at F1 because, oh my God, it's just the coolest thing. And I'm not kidding. You're going to see race drivers on October 31st this year. All right. Thank you, everybody.